Today at Father Song's birthday banquet, Orville had seen the rejuvenation pill, and he also saw how magical it is. However, he did not dare to hope that he could have such a chance. Therefore, although he felt as if he had taken rejuvenation pill, this incident shocked him too much. Therefore, deep down in his heart, he was not sure whether he really took the rejuvenation pill. Charlie smiled slightly and hurriedly gave him a silent look, and said lightly, "This is your chance, feel it well." Mr. Orville burst into tears at this moment. He knew that what Mr. Wade meant was to give himself a chance. He couldn't imagine that in the last second, he would almost die. And in the next second, not only did he not die, but he also got the great opportunity that Mr. Wade bestowed on him. Rejuvenation pill. The great opportunity that he didn't even dare to dream of, unexpectedly came so uninvited. At this moment, Mr. Orville's loyalty to Charlie was almost bursting. He even felt that his life was given by Charlie. From now on, every second of his life would be for Mr. Wade. Therefore, in the future, he will definitely devote himself to the saddle for Mr. Wade, because without Mr. Wade, he would already be a dead person. Immediately afterwards, Mr. Orville's body quickly recovered. He even stood up with a rush from the ground, then knelt in front of Charlie, and said, "Mr. Wade's life-saving grace. From today, my life, it belongs to Mr. Wade." Charlie smiled slightly. "Get up." When Mr. Orville heard the sound, he stood up. Afterwards, he looked around and saw that the Liu family and his son were kneeling on the ground, not daring to move. Jones Zizhou and the 5 Wu family bodyguards had all become useless. He couldn't help but sigh that Mr. Wade's strength is truly unfathomable. With so many people, they didn't even hurt Mr. Wade. Immediately, he couldn't help asking, "Mr. Wade, what do you plan to do with these people? Do you kill them directly? Or?" Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Come on, let's go to the first trial and convict them." "Sheng Tang?" Mr. Orville asked in surprise. "Mr. Wade, what do you mean?" Charlie smiled and said, "It's the ancient prefect master who was promoted to trial." Mr. Orville nodded hurriedly, moved a chair over, and said with a smile, "Mr. Wade, please sit down, let's be promoted." Charlie laughed, sat down on the chair, pointed at Lu Guang, Lu Mingyan, and said coldly, "The criminals Lu Guang and Lu Ming. You two are dogs for the Wu family and you intend to kill me." Lu Guang and Lu Ming were scared and bowed, crying, "Mr. Wade, be forgiving, Mr. Wade. We were forced to be helpless." Charlie smiled indifferently, and said generously, "Since you are also bewitched by others, then this official will save you from the death penalty." When the two heard this, they were so excited that they were about to cry. But Charlie went on to say, "Capital sins can be avoided, and living sins are hard to forgive. If you two want to survive, it depends on your performance." Lu Guang and Lu Ming expressed their opinions one after another. "Mr. Wade, from now on, we father and son will serve you as cows and horses. Forever." Charlie waved his hand. "I don't want you two to saddle me up. After all," he said to Mr. Orville, "Mr. Orville, since this Lu Guang is already poor, what should his father be?" Mr. Orville thought for a while, and said, "If you want to hang on his dad, should he be called the father of poor hanging?" Charlie nodded. "Yes. You are right, he's the father of the poor." After speaking, Charlie looked at Lu Guang and asked with a smile, "Lu Guang, what do you think?" Lu Guang hurriedly nodded his head like pounding garlic, and said flatly, "Mr. Orville is right, I am the father of the poor." "Yeah." Charlie nodded in satisfaction, and said to Mr. Orville, "Look, since he said so by himself, then quickly prepare your calligraphy and give him a pair." "Calligraphy?" Mr. Orville was stunned, and blurted out, "Mr. Wade, what calligraphy? I'm not good at writing calligraphy." Charlie pointed to the word, "poor hanging," on Lu Ming's head and asked Mr. Orville, "Human calligraphy, have you forgotten?" Mr. Orville slapped his forehead suddenly, and said guiltily, "Oh, I'm sorry Mr. Wade, I am dumb, I didn't expect you to mean this." Lu Guang was frightened when he heard this. The word, "poor hanging," on son's forehead has already made him very painful. If he had the word, "father of poor" hanging on his forehead, then he might as well die. So he cried and said, "Mr. Wade, you see that I am too old, so please give me some face." Charlie nodded and said seriously, "I gave you a face, so I asked Mr. Orville to carve your forehead. Otherwise, I would also engrave the words on both sides of your face. Your son will give you a pair, and you can make a money for the father and son." Lu Guang collapsed and cried, and yelled, "Mr. Wade, please forgive me. I am old and my skin is wrinkled. Mr. Orville is not easy to get a knife." Mr. Orville sneered. "Lu Guang, don't bother, my hand is very stable. Even if your forehead is full of large folds, I can engrave the words for you." Jacob hurriedly blurted out and complained at this time. "Good son-in-law, this Lu Guang is not a damn thing. He was going to engrave the words, 'poor father-in-law,' on my forehead, and he said that he should work harder to engrave it on my skull." Lu Guang shuddered, crying and said, "Mr. Wilson, I was joking. You let your mother's old mule bullshit." Jacob shouted angrily, "Your son's knife hit my forehead just now. If it weren't for my son-in-law's arrival in time, I would have asked you to engrave it." Lu Guang hurriedly cried to Charlie, "Mr. Wade, I really made a little joke with your father-in-law, not sincere." Charlie said coldly, "I don't care if you are sincere or not. I will give you the choice now. Either you can let Mr. Orville finish carving the characters without moving, or I will let Mr. Orville take a knife and castrate your son, and yes, castrate in front of you. Choose your own choice."